So now let us prepare for meditation.
Surely the presence of love is in this place. Can feel love's mighty power and love's grace. I can hear the rush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of love is in this place.
Surely the presence of love is in this place. Surely the presence of love is here right now. And so we settle into that. We settle into this present moment. We settle into this moment of love, where this is the time in our service where it's your time, where it's our time to renew ourselves, to refill ourselves, to allow ourselves to replenish, to renourish, to connect with the divinity that we are. And we begin that by relaxing the body. And so I invite you to take in a deep breath and hold it for just a moment. And then slowly exhale. And as you exhale, relaxation begins to flow through the body. Relaxation begins to flow through the body from that top chakra at the crown of the head. You can almost feel it begin to come in when it starts, and the head begins to relax. So the whole body settles down just a bit, knowing that relaxation is flowing through it now. And as that relaxation flows around the head, the jaw begins to relax and let go. And relaxation moves down the shoulders and down the arms, and the hands relax in a comfortable place. And then the breath. I begin focusing on the breath, the breathing in, the breathing out, the relaxing breath, that breath that's always been the breath. I breathe in, I breathe out, I settle down, and relaxation flows down through my chest, around my heart, down through the abdomen. My belly drops. I allow it to relax. The shoulders drop. All the way down to the tips of my toes. I settle in now. And relaxing my body allows the mind to clear. I let go of the stories. I let go of the chatter. I focus on the breath in, the breath out. The chatter slows. The connection happens. I allow myself to realize my divinity, the fact that I am one with all that is, and I am a part of everything, and everything is a part of me, and that I am a spiritual being on a human experience. And I relax into that, knowing that I have everything in my spiritual beingness at my disposal. settling in now, settling into a time of quiet. I re-nourish myself with those gifts, with those attributes, with those helpful items that I have available as a spiritual being. I settle into them now and refill, focusing on the breath, the breathing in, the breathing out, in the silence now, in the silence. Breathing in and breathing out. Beginning the journey back to this present moment. Knowing that I am a spiritual being on a human experience, and that I come back to this present moment, relaxed, refreshed, aware of the strengths, the wisdom, the love, the power, the understanding, the zeal that's available to me at all times, in all situations. I take in another deep breath now and hold it for just a moment. And then exhale. And as I exhale, I slowly allow the eyes to come open and say, thank you, God. Thank you for this time. Thank you. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you, thank you, Reverend Richard. I'll play a piece of original piano music now called uh, Benediction of Light. It's a chance to just let the music take us on an inner journey and send a blessing out into our world. Enjoy.
Standing ovation, standing ovation virtually, standing ovation. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Thank you very much. I'm going
Thank
off
you.
I'm going off script here. Yes, everybody that's saying thank you, thank you. That was wonderful. What a wonderful Sunday. I'm going off script a little bit, Will, but I have to tell you, I had a little tear in my eye because you know, we're talking about prayer and meditation. It's funny what prayer can bring you when you open your heart to prayer. You take me back to my pioneered ministry 20 years ago in Phoenix, and it was in a church that we opened up in a strip mall, and we didn't have anybody to play music. We didn't even have a piano. And I was praying, and I said, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just opened myself up to whatever happens. And I don't know if you know her, in walked Dr. Lynn Hassler, who is a PhD in classical piano, and she said, I'd like to be your music director, you know. And the next thing I knew, I had a 5-piece band, and I certainly didn't ask for it. So prayer, you remind me of that, Will. Thank you. You remind me of Lynn, so I appreciate it. So prayer is so important in our 5 principles, to open ourselves up to prayer and prayer and meditation. And I want to talk with you about that a little bit today and recover from how beautiful that was. And just a couple of housekeeping things to start with. There is the meeting of the Earth Care team after the service today, and there will be a breakout room for the Earth Care team, so we can go to that right after the service. And then the chaplains will be meeting at 12:30 today, and you have a link for that. And I just wanted to say to everybody, consider joining us for World Day of Prayer on the 13th. It's both in person and virtually, and the in person, the chaplains we're going to join together at Davis Community Church, and we're going to watch the opening ceremony for World Day of Prayer at Unity Village. And some of you that have been there with us last year in October will relate to some of the sites you're going to see. And then we're going to have a half-hour prayer time. So it's about an hour and a half this year, and it will be virtual and in person. So I hope you can join us, and I'll be up for it. And it's going to be a nice afternoon. But before I get started, and sort of in the midst of my talk, I wanted to share a little story with you, because I think it's good if I let you know that things that happen to me happen to all of us, and things that happen to you happen to me, and we all share in these crazy things that happen, especially in the times of our life and in the ages of our life. And so on Friday, excuse me, I had rented a zip car because I had some errands to do. And my first errand was to go to Trader Joe's. So I went into Trader Joe's and got 2 bags of groceries. And I don't want to tell you what I paid for that, but it wasn't cheap, and there was hardly anything in it to eat, but that's another story. And I came out to get back in my zip car with my groceries. And while I was in Trader Joe's, somebody had hit the zip car and dented the left fender, the left door. Well, I said, oh God. But then I said, well, it's all insured and covered under zip car. It's not my fault. I'll just take pictures of it. And I got busy doing that. And I filed a report on my telephone. And I had to go to a doctor's appointment, got in the car, went to the doctor's appointment, came out of there and went to Safeway to go in and get some more groceries, and looked in the back of the car. There were no groceries in there from Trader Joe's. There were not, and I thought, well, where did somebody stole them while I was in the doctor. And then I went, oh, you never put the groceries in the car at Trader Joe's after you saw that the car had been hit. You left the groceries in a cart in the parking lot. Well, and this is where my relation to what we're talking about today comes in. What's your first reaction when you do something like that? Well, first of all, I was going to beat myself up. Really, oh, what is wrong with you doing that? And this is old age, and this is that. And how could you do that? And I stopped that right away. And I said, well, let me take a breath. And I found it was time to say a little prayer. I got moved into prayer. And what I appreciated about the moment that I stopped for prayer is that I didn't pray for anything specific. I didn't ask for anything. What I really stopped and prayed was, all right, let's have the very best outcome that's going to happen here happen, because it's been over an hour. I'm not going to pray that the groceries or that the ice cream or the coconut milk ice cream hasn't melted in the parking lot after an hour when it's 84. I mean, I'm not going to pray for that, right? What's the very best outcome that can happen? And so let's talk today about that fourth principle, about prayer and meditation, about the simple version, I pray. And one definition of prayer is that prayer is creative thinking that heightens the connection with God and therefore brings forth wisdom, healing, prosperity, and everything good. Isn't that wonderful? The prayer, it brings forth, it heightens the connection with God, with source, with the universe, with oneness, with whatever your name for that is, and for whatever the first principle is, whatever your name is, that there's one presence and one power, that God is, right? And that then it brings forth everything good. And through, now this is where we bring some new thought and unity into prayer, through affirmative prayer and meditation, we connect with God and bring out the good in our life. There is power in affirmative prayer, which we believe increases our connection to God, to source, to the universe. So I'm going to talk in a little bit about types of prayer, and we've done this before, but just to review, and you'll see where affirmative prayer fits in, and that's the type of prayer we use in unity. And so we're going to talk about affirmative prayer a little bit, and then the difference between prayer and meditation. But reviewing where we are here in our 5 principle series, principle 4, and we said at the very beginning, and I'm going to repeat it again, that the first principle tells us, according to Kelly Issila's writing, that there is one presence and one power, God. And we say that there are 4 other principles, and Kelly says, well, actually, we could combine the first 2 principles into one and then have 3 practices. And I believe in that. And so that God is and I am, that's the principle. That's what we need to go forth on. That'll help us in this human experience. That will allow us to get to the tools that can help us decrease suffering or what we have in our mind as negative or adversity and thinking that we're not enough. And so then we have 3 practices that we can bring into our lives. And if we do this, I can almost promise you, and I've said this before, that it will change your life. It will make a difference in your life, that you change your thinking, it will change your mind. And that's the practice that we talked about last week, the law of mind action, that what you think is what you get, thoughts held in mind, what you imagine, the visions that you bring, the images that you bring, and you hold on to them, is how you create your reality in this human experience. And so we've done God is, I am, I think, and today we do I pray. And so the act of prayer is attested in written sources, or that prayer, we can track prayer back as early as 5,000 years ago. So prayer has been around for a long time. And today, most major religions involve prayer in one way or another. Some ritualize prayer, requiring a strict sequence of actions or placing a restriction on who's permitted to pray, that men and women may have to pray separately, whatever that is, whatever that ritual is that's added to the act, prayer's there. And while others teach that prayer may be practiced spontaneously by anyone or any time. And lots of Western religions practice that. Certainly evangelical Christianity practices that Jesus can be called on at any minute, at any time, and Jesus is always there. And so it's a spontaneous calling. And we believe that in New Thought, that change your thinking, change your thoughts. We call on our inner self to bring some kind of change or some kind of action to what we're experiencing to make it different. And so I'm having trouble with my mouse here, forgive me. So I'm sorry, everybody. It's just going so fast that it's making me laugh. Here we go. All right. So prayer cannot be defined in an exact way. We've had, I can quote hundreds of people trying to define prayer, and I just read one definition of it. But Richard Foster views prayer as establishing a loving relationship with God, simply opening our hearts. Father John Lorenzo says prayer has two essential parts: becoming aware of God's presence and trying to relate to that presence. Becoming aware of God's presence and trying to relate to that presence. And Rachel Rahman, who's the author of Kitchen Table Wisdom, views prayer primarily as changing what is inside of us, changing our consciousness. She says God is like gravity, a constant relationship. In prayer, we recognize that we are moved, and then there is that which moved us. I can relate to that. Recognizing that we are moved in the midst of prayer, and then there is that moved us. And it's that moved us that we are trying to connect with. So in unity, then, we utilize affirmative prayer. And you can break prayer down into maybe 4 different kinds of prayer. And I'll just mention them lightly, but you're familiar with most of them. Conversational prayers are the first, and they're prayers of asking and authenticity. For example, the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity. You're asking, it's conversational. Hey, God, grant me the serenity to accept those things I cannot change. Give me courage, the courage to change the things I can, and the strength to know the difference. And so, relating that to New Thought from a conversational, because we can relate to that serenity prayer, we're calling forth, we're saying, okay, let me take a moment here, let me go to the source, and that's my divinity there. I'm one with God. I have this strength available, I have courage available, and so I call them forth and I utilize them in the situation that I'm trying to change, or that I have an expectation should be a particular way that I want it to be, because I'm holding that thought in mind. And then there are uplifting and affirming prayers. And that's what we utilize in New Thought. Prayers of praise, gratitude, love, affirmations. We affirm our highest and best good, that we praise. We don't punish. We don't admonish. We don't talk about sin. We talk about right thinking. I pray for right thinking. And so we use uplifting affirmative prayer. Then we have prayer for others. Excuse me, or intercessory prayer. Our chaplains practice prayers for others. We believe in praying for others. And so it's prayers of intercession and healing. Prayer for a good example of prayer for others is the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The power of God protects us. And we stopped in the middle of the service when Don was up being the chaplain. We took time to pray for others. not for specific things, but for everything that we know that's theirs, for healing and wholeness, and for all the wisdom and courage that we have available to us. And then another type of prayer is contemplative prayer. And we've talked about that in some of the classes recently, but that's contemplative prayer is where you surrender, where you're present, where you enter into the silence and you find the sacred in everyday life. The rosary, mantras, repeating something over and over, the Lord's Prayer. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But it's that surrendering, being present, entering into the silence and finding the sacred in everyday life. Excuse me, it sounds a bit like meditation, doesn't it? So we'll remember that, and we'll going back to prayer then and talking about affirmative prayer. In the Revealing Word, or in the Metaphysical Dictionary, whatever you want to call it, but the Revealing Word, it says this about prayer. Prayer is the most highly accelerated mind action known. It is an affirmation of truth that eternally exists, but which has not yet come into consciousness. It comes into consciousness not by supplication, but by affirmation. So if you think about that for a moment, no, you can tell that it comes from the Revealing Word. It's a metaphysical and new thought that it is an affirmation or a statement. It is an affirming of something that hasn't been into consciousness. We open ourselves to it and we allow ourselves to connect, and that a thought that we haven't had before comes into consciousness. And it's not by begging for it or saying exactly what we want. It's by connecting with our divinity and allowing ourselves to hear it, to come into thought, to come into thought. Myrtle Fillmore, in Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters, Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, said this: "This is our prayer, acknowledging our oneness with God, claiming the ability that this gives, and expecting we have the things needed and conducive to spiritual progress." That's so Myrtle, and expecting. You can almost hear, and some of you know Dorothy Pearson from the Sacramento churches and all around, you can expecting to have the things needed and conducive to spiritual progress. That our best will come, that we can expect to have them, that they're there, and we're affirming that they're ours. We're not getting into the whole negative thing. We're not denying that they're ours. We're not bringing in an old story or a tape. That they're conducive. We're going to get it. We're going to make spiritual progress here. And then lastly, Charles Fillmore in Teach Us to Pray says this: in prayer, attention is the concentration of the mind upon a statement of truth. Attention is focalizing the I am, or inner entity, upon a word of prayer until the inner meaning is realized and the soul is aware of a definite spiritual uplift. That's Charles. That attention then, that we go to our I am, the Christ consciousness, the spiritual being that we are, and we enter into the prayer, and when we go there, and when we're quiet, and when we're listen, we have realization, and that the soul is aware of a definite spiritual uplift. It's that quickening that we've talked about before, that realization that, when you become aware that, there's the answer, there's it is. It's not at all. There's the butterfly sitting on my shoulder. Miracles do happen. I never noticed that butterfly before. It's that awakening. It's that letting God be God in you. And so prayer and meditation then become our way in this human experience of communicating, of bringing our human experience into communication with the spiritual being that we are, that we're coming together in the oneness, however you want to say it. I think you're hearing what I'm trying to say. And so how do we do that? How do we get there? How do we pray? Well, you know, there is no right way to pray. There is no wrong way to pray. I'm not here to tell you how to pray. Prayer can be a very personal thing, and you would never think of praying with somebody else, or you're one of those that'll call silent unity and go up to a chaplain without hesitation and ask for prayer, like I hope most of you are willing to do, because prayer can be a very open and replenishing thing for both the prayer and the prayee. And so, but in, you know, what our prayer chaplains have reviewed this with you before, but I just want to briefly talk about how to get to a prayerful place. And it's through movements. It's almost like a dance, but first is relaxation. And you hear me do that. We relax. We allow ourselves to relax and relax the body and the mind. And then the second movement, the second part of the dance is God is. God is. We move into that place that God is. That's where prayer begins to work. That, all right, God is. No more questions. God is. I've got all the answers to my existential angst there. I'm done asking those things. God is. I'm going to be right there because that's where I am in this human experience. And so it's recognition. And we begin to concentrate on that God is. We stay in that place. And then the third movement, the part of the dance, and the lovely part is that then there's integration, that the I am and the God is and the oneness becomes one within us. And we're in that space. We allow ourselves to be in the space. And then the fourth movement, the fourth part of the dance, the realization begins to happen that because God is and I am able to be, do, and have, and to bring about something wonderful. That I imagine my next thoughts, words, and actions arising. That what you do next comes from that realization, from having integrated, from stopping and just breathing into, oh, God and I are one. I am. Oh, I feel it. Let me be quiet for a moment and allow God to be God in me. And I know that the answer is, I don't need to know that answer right now. Perhaps is what you're getting. And you don't want to hear that. But that moment, that realization is when you, I don't need to know that right now. I really don't. Okay. And you feel it, and then you can move on in the human experience and let it be. Or, you know, maybe you get some, it's totally opposite of what I thought I wanted, and I realize I'm going to take it. And then the last movement that we in affirmative prayer is gratitude, where we give thanks for it. So we say thank you to ourselves, thank you to God, thank you to Jesus, thank you to Allah. Thank you to whatever that God is for you. We say thank you. And then we talk about meditation. So what is meditation then? What's the difference in it? And so I went to the Revealing Word, and it says this about meditation. Meditation then is continuous and contemplative thought, to dwell mentally on anything, realizing the reality of the absolute, a steady effort of the mind to know God, man's spiritual approach to God. The purpose of meditation is to expand the consciousness, to expand the consciousness Christward, or to allow ourselves to move into the Christ consciousness, to bring into realization, which we just talked about in prayer, divine truth. Those gifts, that divinity. And then to stay there, to sit there, to be there, to know that, to allow that to go in and through ourselves and our being, and to be transformed in spirit, soul, and body by the renewing of the mind. So it's a practice. It's a prayer, but meditation is a prayer, but all prayer isn't meditation. Meditation is thinking about God or God's nature and one's relationship to God. And I just chuckled because when I wanted to tell you what I'm quoting from here. I'm quoting from an old Metaphysics 1 book from the Unity Correspondence School, so it's kind of fun to read it. So meditation brings the thoughts of the conscious thinking mind under control. Oh, listen to that one. Isn't that great? Meditation brings the thoughts of the thinking or the conscious mind under control. It stops that chatter, that monkey mind. Meditation closes the door of the mind on unwanted thoughts. We use denials. We deny any power to it, and opens it to the free flow of godlike thoughts or affirmations. Meditation draws the mind within singleness of thought and purpose. I'm going to end with this one about meditation. Meditation helps us to mentally digest the truth. Meditation helps us to mentally digest the truth. And we spend time in the silence. It's said that we ask in meditation, we receive in the silence. So in meditation, we ask, okay, here I am. Oh, I'm letting go of it all. I'm getting in the midst of it. Okay. That's asking. I'm clearing my thoughts. I'm open. And then in the silence, when we sit in the silence, we receive. No matter what we receive, we've received. Even if we think we received nothing, we've received. When we enter into the silence, we enter into the world of thought. Your answer to prayer will come to you as a thought. And so it says here, don't be confused by what others may say about seeing visions or hearing voices. Visions and colors or voices have never healed or prospered anyone. They only point toward the true message. And this true message is be still and know. Just be still and know. And know, because you do already know. Lastly, and then we'll wind down here, prayer. Let's talk about prayer for a minute. So everybody knows the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Now, let's hear that same prayer translated. Thank you, Dottie Bonneau, for reminding me of this. Directly from the Aramaic, from the tongue, from the language of Jesus's time, from the language that they spoke then, the Hebrew, the Aramaic. Let's hear what it is translated directly in English and not into Greek and then Latin and then, or Greek and Roman and Latin and whatever else it's been translated into. So here it is directly translated from the Aramaic. O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of our being and carve out a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each being needs to grow and flourish. Untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. Do not let us be seduced by that which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of the present moment. For you are the ground and the fruitful vision, the birth, power, and fulfillment, as all is gathered and made whole once again. And so it is. And so it is. Go forth, practice, pray, and meditate. Have a wonderful week. Thank you, Dr. Will Tuttle. A little music from you would be wonderful. Thank you, everybody.